Hey, here we go, part two, part 1.8. There it is. Okay, it's day apart. All right, so I've checked it, and my recollection is that we stopped at Great Compromise, so we're looking at the three-fifths compromise. All right, so this Constitution stuff, I don't know. It's pretty important, and I go fast on it, because we're going to spend a lot of time on it next year. But you do kind of have to know some stuff about it. So there's the great compromise right there. All right. So it's setting up the bicameral legislature. If you look at that thing, the Virginia plan was the big state plan. New Jersey's plan was a small state plan. So they created the House of Representatives out of the Virginia plan and the Senate out of the New Jersey plan. And the Senate's the small state plan because Rhode Island or Delaware has just as many senators as California does, whereas in the House, California has 52 representatives and Delaware has one. So that's the great compromise. It's about representation. So then what about when you're counting slaves? So we remember that because it came back up during Reconstruction. Came back up a couple times. This was the reason Lincoln felt like he couldn't mess with slavery. So remember that one, the Three-Fifths Compromise. We remember that, hey, four of the first five presidents were from Virginia because of that Three-Fifths Compromise. That adds to the electoral vote because the electoral vote is based on the number of people a state has in Congress. All right, and then remember the Slave Trade Compromise kept the slave trade going till 1808. Of course, slavery doesn't end, we know, until the 13th Amendment in 1865. And remember, even in the Compromise of 1850, part of that was no slave auctions in Washington, D.C. Didn't mean the slave trade was still going, because the slave trade became illegal after 1808. There's still a few people that brought slaves over. Jim Bowie, who died at Alamo, was an illegal slave trader. But slavery, the number of slaves in the United States grew to 14 million as a result of slave families, moms and dads having kids. All right. Let's see what we got next. Let's check the review sheet. Anything else on the Constitution? Okay, so then the next thing is going to be the Bill of Rights. And the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, and you got to win them over. So the Anti-Federalists are concerned that this is creating more tyranny. So what's going to happen? There's going to be a Bill of Rights added. It's the first 10 amendments. Define the word right. It's a limit on the government. All right, so the government's not allowed to take away your freedom of speech, and the government's not allowed to take away your right to bear arms. So the Bill of Rights is added. So anti-federalists are saying, well, if you're going to give the government the power to tax, regulate interstate commerce, it's just going to grow out of control. And then the federalists will say, no, look, here's 10 limits, absolute limits on what the government can do. Also, they're going to promise George Washington, so everybody trusts him not to be tyrannical. Then remember, they're also doing the Federalist Papers, and let's go down here and see if we can find some Federalist Papers stuff. All right, there it is. All right, written by Hamilton Madison J. It's for the cool kids in New York. You got to win legitimacy for this plan. It's not that it's not going to get ratified. There were already 9 states enough to ratify it, but New York, if you don't have New York, it's not going to last very long. All right, so Federalist 10 is you got to spread out the country. Bigger is better. You don't want any group, any clique, any faction dominating. The cliques on his mind are the farmers or businesses. So you spread them out to where they can't dominate. You control the effects of it. All right, then Federalist 51, it's the just right plan for government. It's not too strong, not too weak. It's strong enough. You need a strong government. If men were angels, no government would be necessary. But you don't need a too strong government because angels don't govern men. So if they did, neither internal controls, impeachment. That's an internal control on the government. External controls, elections. That's an external control on the government. All right, so you're setting up these elections and you're setting up the checks and the balances, impeachment, vetoes, overriding the vetoes, all that stuff. And so he's arguing that he's creating a government that's built to last, one that's not too strong but is strong enough to govern human beings as you find them, human nature as you find it. You know, we have the divine spark in us. We're the beast with the angel in us. All right, so we do stupid, screwed up, angry, things that we regret, but we also have this potential for doing good things. And so government, and Madison's saying his plan for government is accounting for that. All right, now let's see. Let's go back, see what we got. All right, so then we're going on to Washington. All right, well, let's go to Washington. Boom, 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 boom. There he is. All right, so, hey, I got all these precedents. He sets all these examples. So we know he's unanimously chosen. He said, so help me God. That's not in the Constitution ever since then. When they take an oath of office, presidents have said, so help me God. He chose a cabinet. It's not in there that he chose a cabinet. His cabinet was big time, especially Jefferson versus Hamilton, and they're going to argue about the constitutionality of that bank. He's saying, hey, this kind of government's built to last. He's going to put down the Western Revolt. This time it's Whiskey Rebellion over the tax on whiskey. All right, he's staying neutral between Britain and France. So that's another precedent. And he warns us about parties and alliances. We listen to him more about alliances than about parties. All right, what else? So then you got this story of Hamilton versus Jefferson. So in a lot of ways, the Washington presidency was brought to you by his Secretary of Treasury Hamilton, who's anticipating Henry Clay and the Whigs, and is really anticipating Rockefeller and Carnegie and the Republicans that we're going to see right away next semester. All right, so he creates this bank. It's going to be good for the economy, but that's not an enumerated power in the Constitution. Okay, so Jefferson, the Secretary of State, says he's going to take a strict reading of the Constitution. The only way this Constitution, this stronger government, is going to be tyrannical is if it's limited to the powers that are listed. Limited to the listed, the enumerated powers, and a bank's not in there. Maybe a good thing to do, but it's not listed. So in the name of the principle of limited government, you've got to say strict. So the government can't do it. All right. Hamilton says, yeah, but the power to create a bank is implied by the power to regulate commerce, by the power to tax. So we can't anticipate all the things government's got to do. So there's got to be implied powers too. All right, and it's implied by this necessary and proper clause. Okay, and so, hey, Washington ends up kind of taking Hamilton's side. So Washington ends up a de facto Federalist. He says parties are bad, but he kind of takes the position of the Federalists. Today, there's a lot of people that call themselves independents, but then they always vote for the same side. And so by the end of his time in office, Washington, who ironically we'd expect to be a Republican because he's a Virginia planter like Jefferson and Madison, ends up being a Federalist in terms of, because Hamilton has this real influence on him. Okay, we know that the Federalists and the Republicans developed. The Federalists were the city parties, believed in strong government. Back then, strong government was in favor of a tariff to protect business. All right, the Republicans were the farmers' party, the country party, the rural party. They didn't like government doing anything. That government, which governs best, governs least. All right, and let's go over here and see what we have. All right, so then you got, so coming out of that, whoa, I hit the down button over here. All right, so then you're going to have Adams. So he was a Federalist. He was his vice president. He just barely beat Jefferson in 1796. Jefferson becomes vice president. It's going to be a problem. That's why they do the 12th Amendment. The French do the XYZ. Remember, it's a hostage crisis. So Adams creates the Navy. He won't take the bribe. And then he hates on the French here in the United States. So the alien part is, hey, you got to be here 14 years to be a citizen. You want to make sure you can break up alien acts and sedition acts. Alien acts, 14 years to be a citizen. Sedition is the crime of criticizing the government. Crime of betraying your government. So that's the sedition part of it. All right, and that's Adams. All right, and let's go over here. Okay, so then, that's going to be unpopular, so Jefferson's getting elected. He's doing Louisiana Purchase. Remember, they called it the Revolution of 1800, but he kind of acts like a Federalist. So it doesn't say in the Constitution that he can buy a bunch of land for France for real cheap, 3 cents an acre. Remember, the farmers wanted the right of deposit. But maybe the more important thing is, so he sends Lewis and Clark. We know that. Constitution doesn't say he can do it, but, for the sake of his heroes, he breaks his view of the Constitution, and he does it anyway. All right, so that's Louisiana Purchase. Okay, War of 1812. All right, remember the causes. The causes are the impressment and Tecumseh. Impressment and Tecumseh. Yeah, guns going to Tecumseh. So we tend to we forget that particular Indian. So there's the parties there. All right, 3/5 compromise helps Jefferson win. All right, what? So there it is. All right, he sends those guys over there. He's using loose construction. All right, so there's that. He's kind of got the common touch, and he reaches out to. All right, so the War of 1812. So it's impressment. That means kidnapping, remember, and they're giving guns to Tecumseh. Okay, so then in the war, Harrison wins the Battle of Tippecanoe. Jackson's an Indian fighter too. They lose when they fight the British themselves. The British send a bunch of soldiers over here and they capture Washington, burn it down. And so the Star-Spangled Banner's next. All right, Francis Scott Key wrote it. Is in Baltimore. They're for Fort McHenry. The flag comes down. Maybe the United States comes down too. Treaty again ends the war in a tie. But nobody found out about it until after the Battle of New Orleans. 1814, we took a little trip, long introduction down the mountain, Mississippi. Remember that? I can't remember the rest of it. All right, but the war ends in a draw. Okay, so that gets you to Monroe. Let's look over here at what we have. So I'm going to breathe for a second. Man, everybody, the reason I gripe every time somebody says a video is, there's no review where y'all are talking about it. I don't get to breathe. So I'm going to look at this and fast forward to where I'm talking again if you want to, but I'm going to breathe, give my brain some breaths for a second. Okay, so there it is. So we're looking at Monroe and the era of good feelings and like the market revolution, Monroe Doctrine. Okay, so let's go over here. All right, so the Federalists, the Hartford Convention, they're mad. Some of them talk about secession, we now know. So the Federalists because they talked about secession, they did not succeed as a party. All right, so we got that. Okay, All right, so Monroe, he goes and he meets everybody, makes everybody feel better. He comes within a vote of unanimous election. All right, and let's see. Went on a Goodwill tour. So, hey, why are we feeling good? Where's the dang thing about why we're feeling good? It's here somewhere. Let's see. There it is. All right, so we're proud of ourselves. All right, he goes on the Good World Tour. There's a strong economy. All right, also with Monroe, you're going to have the Monroe Doctrine because these Latin American countries got their independence. So it says, stay out, no more colonization. The countries are not Britain. It's France, Russia, Austria, Prussia. Spain had lost its empire. So France, Russia, Austria, and Prussia thinking about stepping in, and Monroe says, no, don't do that. We're going to see that as aggression. And Britain's not on our side, but they're liking to trade down there. So they're the de facto enforcer of this thing. We had a navy, but not much of a navy. All right. So then we go up here and we take a look at what we got. So that's the Monroe. All right. So you got the American system, and then we'll work our way to like the market revolution. Can we do that? Ooh, that's going to be kind of tough. All right. So, all right, well, let's just look at the American system. We'll say what it is. All right, so let's go back up here. There it is. All right, there's three parts of the American system. So, I mean, the market revolution is coming out of the war. And this is Henry Clay. All right, so if Jefferson's the father of political independence, Clay's the father of like economic independence and still kind of economically independent on Britain leading to that's kind of a cause of the war. So he wants to make us independent, economically independent. So, the government's kind of driving the market revolution. So we'll look at the market revolution in a minute. Okay. But it's after the war that strengthened the economy. All right. There's three parts to it. The tariff is a tax on imports to help industry in New England. All right. The transportation improvements, that's going to help, farmers send their goods to market in other places and buy their stuff from, producers in other places. And the second bank of the U.S., that's going to be good for the economy, good for, I don't really understand banks, but, a banking system will be good for a national economy. Pro-business folks like Hamilton and Clay like that sort of thing, and farm or rural folks like Jefferson and then Jackson don't like it. All right, so we kind of understand that. All right, now I believe up here on the review sheet what we're going to have is Jackson. All right, so look right there. All right, so hey, let's say cotton in the South. Cotton's king. South Carolina guy said to a northerner, you're not going to mess with cotton. Cotton's king. You like your cotton that you put in your factories. If there was a war, the South thought Britain would take their side because they liked the cotton. All right, the cotton gin's been invented. That's kind of an invention that kind of helps ride the market revolution. And the South is specialized. There's still tobacco planting in Virginia and the Carolinas, but cotton overtakes thanks to the cotton gin. Slavery is saved and becomes a positive good as people see it, rather than a negative, necessary evil. And so that's the end of that argument that, slavery was going to kind of die out. Okay, so then we got Jackson right here. So let's find us some Jackson and we'll tell the story of Jackson. And then we'll get to the market revolution and, the reform movements of the age of Jackson. Jackson. Where the heck are you, baby? Let's go. All right. I don't want that. Good gracious, Jackson. There we go. All right. Jackson almost got elected in 1824, won the popular vote. Got a plurality in the electoral college, but not a majority, so it went to the House. And Henry Clay, the Speaker of the House, influenced the House to choose Adams, John Quincy Adams, and then lo and behold, John Quincy Adams makes him Secretary of State. And this makes it seem like he's going to be president forever and ever and ever. All right, John Quincy Adams is Jackson's not going to be president ever for 4 elections. Adams is going to win 2, and then Clay, as Secretary of State, is going to be the next guy, and he's going to win 2. All right, 1828, instead, Jackson wins a landslide because between 24 and 28, states gave poor white guys the right to vote. All right, so then you got Jacksonian democracy. All right, he hires his buddies. They don't need to be qualified. You need a natural sense of right and wrong. Common man's got that. So says Jackson. And, interest in, debate over that. Okay. He's kind of a dictator, kingish kind of guy. He doesn't like norms like Trump. He says, hey, I'm the president. I can do what I want. Shut up about manners. And so he vetoes all these things. 12 vetoes. All right, and so the Whigs say he's acting too much like a king, so they named themselves after this anti-monarchy party in Britain, so you got a 2-party system. All right, so we know the Cherokee, there's the name of the 5 tribes, it's the Indian Removal Act, there's the court cases, Cherokee versus Georgia, but they're not citizens. 14th Amendment is going to take care of that, sort of, not exactly. One thing 14th Amendment says, you're born in the United States, unless you're an Indian. All right, so we didn't know that, but, so we'll look at that second semester. All right, and then Worcester versus Georgia, hey, a citizen, the missionary sues, and so they win, but Jackson says, let the Supreme Court enforce it. So that's the Trail of Tears, the old and the young die on the way, and they head to Oklahoma. All right, other stuff. So the nullification crisis, there's crazy old Calhoun. All right, one of our videos says he looks like Dracula. And they saw the tariff, remember, as a tax on slavery. Remember, really, a tax on slave codes. Not slave clothes. So they're threatening, look at there, secession, S-E, not success. South Carolina talked about seceding, but they didn't have success in getting rid of the tariff. They had a little bit of success because Clay lowered the tariff, so they had a compromise tariff. So now we know what we need to do. Anytime we say secession, we need to also talk about success. All right. So he hated the bank. The bank's like a monopoly on all business, and he's anticipating next semester. It's on the side of the rich. So he vetoed his recharter when Clay tries to recharter it, and then he pulls the funds out, replaces them, puts the money in pet banks, state banks, also called wildcat banks. They don't operate according to sound business principles. They give out too many loans, and then Jackson passes this law saying all money's got to be, there's no such thing as paper money. All money's got to be gold and silver, and there's only so much. And so that's going to, cause this panic of 1837 that Van Buren pays the price for. So that's why I draw a van, some guy named Jack's on a van that's burning in 1837, and he's panicking. All right, so boom. That gets us out of Jackson, right? I don't think there's anything else on Jackson. Okay, so we'll go to market revolution, and then we'll find our way to the reforms. All right, so let's go right here. So market revolution, hey, you're producing, the revolution is a big change, and you're not buying and selling with and from your neighbors anymore. It's from your neighbors in other regions. Usually it's not other countries, although it is. Britain's buying cotton. But you're producing and buying and selling from people far away that you don't see. And a lot of times you're not working in your home. You're working someplace else. So that's really changing the way people make a living. That's a real change, economic revolution. All right, so what's going along with that? The factory system, remember, was girls first, the Lowell girls, Lowell, Massachusetts. Up there in New England, that's going to be always our industrial center, but now there's factories there. All right, and then the Irish come, and then you got the immigration controversy there. So they're coming because of the potato famine. There's stuff in the ballot box. They're working for Boss Tweed that we've learned about now. And the Germans move out west. And my daughter is now dating this fella who's got a German family. And he's got family in both Wisconsin and Texas. So, that's kind of interesting. All right. And so, the Germans moved out west right there. So there's some American history going right there. All right. They're not quite as controversial. All right. So there's the inventions. All right. So invention number one, really kind of before the market revolution happens, in 1793. All right, but it's making slavery profitable long term. All right, the Western inventions, the reaper, so it's to the Western farmer, to the corn husker, what the cotton gin is to the planter. All right, the steel plow too, that's for Western farmers. All right, communications, the telegraph invented by Morse. There's Lincoln hanging out in the telegraph office. All right, waiting for news of the Battle of Fredericksburg or Antietam or something like that. 15 miles on the Erie Canal. All right, it was 363 miles long, but the guy in the song and Sal have a route from, let's see, look at that. Their route is not from Albany to Buffalo. Look, that's 363 miles long. So they have a 15-mile route along this canal that goes from Albany to Buffalo. And Albany's up here at the top of the Hudson River, and so it goes down to New York City. So it makes New York City our national trade center eventually. The World Trade Center, even though it's going to, the canal's going to be placed by railroads because they work better. All right, so they don't freeze. They're not stubborn like mules. All right, other inventions, transportation improvements, the Clipper ship. So Los Angeles Clippers going to be key to the gold rush, Pony Express. Kind of neat, even though it doesn't last very long. You ride shotgun when you get on the stagecoach going out there because there's going to be Indian attacks maybe. All right, there's a national road and steamboats. One national road, steamboats let you go up and down the river. All right, other things. Yeah, we said that. This is pretty much the same thing. Okay, that's decent reform movements, right? There's some inventions. You got the South. You got the regional specialization. Definition of it. Okay, so then you got the reform movements right here. They're revivals. They're reformers. There's the Methodist saying, do all the good you can by all the means you can, all the ways you can, all the ways you can, all the times you can, all the people you can, as long as ever you can. All right? I'm not going to talk. Okay, hey, there's the Mormons. There's one of the, it's one of the groups, religious groups coming out of this. Brigham Young led them to Utah. They had those controversial beliefs. Joseph Smith got killed in Illinois, so you got the cult of domesticity. Hey, the Seneca Falls Convention's coming out of that. Got to make good men out of these common men. So there it is, Seneca Falls. Also, remember Seneca's one of the Iroquois tribes, the Mooks. Stanton, Anthony, and Maude, your women's leaders, although Susan B. Anthony was not at Seneca Falls. And remember, the lady's going to get very upset with this 15th Amendment because doesn't give them the right to vote. Gave African American men the right to vote. They want less drinking, not complete prohibition. That's going to come in the 1920s. All right, but they felt like, you make America more moral, and we, in fact, drink less as a result of these reform movements. Okay, the Transcendentalists, they're just great. I really like them a lot. You rise above the nonsense. Remember, you rise above the nonsense. All right, Emerson talks about self-reliance. He's got that pamphlet. And Thoreau hung out in the woods. He wrote Civil Disobedience, about your duty to disobey an immoral law. Remember, he wouldn't pay his taxes to support the Mexican-American War because he felt like he was spreading slavery. And he spent a night in jail, and he influenced, pen's mightier than the sword. He influenced Gandhi and Martin Luther King. All right. Mann's the father of public schools. Dorothea Dix worked with the mentally ill. All right, anything else on that? And then the abolitionists. So the great abolitionists, there's Frederick Douglass. I think probably the greatest one. William Lloyd Garrison, he doesn't believe. So these guys want immediate abolition, not the gradual abolition of the colonization society in Liberia and all that. All right, I shall be heard is what he said. And there's rivalry between these two guys. Okay, the Grimke sisters had to leave the South because they were abolitionists, and then there's that again. All right, then you got slavery. All right, let's take a look over here. Market Revolution. So Second Great Awakening. So then you got slavery right there, so here we go. Responses to slavery is what I put in there. All right, so there's the social structure of the South, Gone with the Wind. So everybody in the South, all whites in the South, are pro-slavery, even though a small minority of them have many slaves. Davy Crockett had a slave. Polk had a few slaves. No, not Polk. He had plenty of slaves. Who's the guy? Johnson. Andrew Johnson had a few slaves, like a mountain southerner. All right. Polk was plantation owner. He had plenty of slaves. All right. So there's those folks again. So, hey, there's the responses. It's better to be a house slave than a field slave. They fear being sold down the river right there. That's a really interesting picture. All right, so then the punishment is really bad. So almost nobody leaves a rebellion. People run away, but when we look at the Harriet Tubman, we see that they're not really a threat to the institution. So more passive resistance is what's practiced. All right, Nat Turner led that rebellion. So then planters freak out and pass the slave codes. All right, as a result. And so, the two sides just kind of radicalized, pro-slave and anti-slave. The people who are causing the Civil War get more radical during the age of Jackson. It's not the same people like you had during the nation building period with like Monroe. And during the era of good feelings, the same people are both anti-slavery and slave owners. All right, so you got that Calhoun defense of it. All right, and so there you go. Let's see if we got anything else. I imagine we're going to be going. So there's a little more. There's Jefferson. All right. The faith, the role of religion, obey your masters, and then Exodus. Harriet Tubman was Moses. Okay, so then you go Manifest Destiny. So let's go back up here, take a look at it. Shoo! A lot of dang stuff. All right. Okie doke. All right. So Manifest Destiny. So you start out in the Alamo. That was not in the Mexican-American War. That was 1835. Texas gets independence, becomes a country for 10 years. All right. So then Polk gets elected. Harrison died real quick. You know that one. Polk gets elected on a Manifest Destiny. Tippecanoe and Tyler Polk too was Harrison. What was it? 54-40 or 5. That was it. Polk. All right. And God wanted us to spread. All right. So he's going to pick a fight. He's going to defeat Clay. He's going to settle for part of Oregon, 49 degrees north. All right, and he's going to send Taylor down there. All right, and there's the heroes, Taylor and Winfield Scott. Taylor's not going down to Mexico City. Scott is, and he's defeating the Chapultepec cadets. Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo gives us all the land. Boom, there you got your essay topics. There we go, we're getting close. We're going to make it. Oh, look at that. So slavery in the West. All right, the Wilmot Proviso said, no, it's not spreading, but it never passed the Senate. All right, Polk said, we don't have to worry about it, but yeah, we do, because gold is discovered in 1848. So you got gold rush coming through the Golden Gate. They're leaving their boats there, the Clipper ships. Poor old Golden State Warriors sure are bad this year. The Clippers are better. Kawhi's such a real weird guy, but he went to the Clippers. Nobody got rich, but, the store owners, Levi Strauss, the 49ers stadium's called Levi's Stadium. All right, it was Wild Wild West because the women don't come. So then it's all about the spread of slavery. All right, Taylor was against it, but we know he died drinking milk. So it's Fillmore that signed the compromise. Utah doesn't have slavery. California doesn't have slavery. It's Utah and New Mexico. Now, we know there's a bunch of states out there, but at the time, it's 2 territories, Utah and New Mexico. All right? How do you remember it's those two? What's the Mormon place, and then what would you call the place right next to Mexico? It's basically the way I guess I would remember it. All right, and then you got the Fugitive Slave Act, and so they saw Burns, and so everybody's mad. Slavery's not spreading. The North is getting radicalized. Y'all wrote about this very well. There's Underground Railroad. She's more militant. I'm hoping to watch that movie. I really want to watch that movie. Maybe I'll be surprised that I don't see it as Rambo. So there's the stats on her. All right. All right, that's why everybody's mad about it. That was one of our documents, wasn't it? Yep, that was one of our documents. Look at her. Hey, she ain't loving her enemy, right? I mean, she's tough and she's Christian, but she's a militant anti-slavery Christian. She's not only shooting her enemy, she's shooting runaway slaves if they try to go back. She never actually did, but she threatened to. We remember that. And remember, she's got narcolepsy because she's been hit in the head by the slave owner. All right, what do we got? All right, so there we go. story you've been telling us, Uncle Harriet Beecher Stowe. Somebody wrote Harriet Tubman. No, she couldn't read. She can't write it. Also, Harriet Beecher Stowe was a Northerner. Somebody had written that she had personal experience. No, that was the Grimke sisters that became abolitionists. All right, so a lot of you said, hey, he credited her with starting the war. Kansas, Nebraska, popular sovereignty. It's repealing the Missouri Compromise. Both sides won, so they fight. There's John Brown, picture number 1. There's our Free Soul political cartoon, Potawatomi Massacre. Bop, 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 bop. All right, so Brooks of Canaan, Sumner. All right, that wasn't a document, was it? You could have read about that one. Written about that one. There's Dred Scott. You can take your property anywhere. So Lincoln's getting all fired up about that. Now he lost. He lost that election to Stephen Douglas, but he makes a name for himself as being kind of the moderate anti-slavery nominee of the anti-slavery Republican Party. He's not abolitionist. He's the restrictionist nominee of the Republican Party. Got to remind myself to say that. Okay, so there's John Brown, and there's the propaganda. A lot of you wrote about that on the essay because there wasn't that document. All right, so he gets elected. He did not lose the Electoral College, but he had a minority of the popular vote that translated in Electoral College win. Okay, so there it is. There it is. Now you got you a civil war. All right, we're close, we're close, we're close. All right, there it is. Okay, 2 topics. Let's go through them. See what we can do. All right, let's see. So it starts at Fort Sumter. All right, in the east, after Fort Sumter, he calls up more troops. So 4 more secede, S-E-C-E-D-E. So the South's got better shots, better generals. The North's got more of everything. You know that. Jefferson Davis and Lincoln. Lincoln does a better job. He's got more power. The first big battle is First Bull Run in the east. In the east, most of the fighting's in Virginia. Second Bull Run, Lee repeats it. All right, let's see. So he hires McClellan. Lincoln does. McClellan trains the Army of the Potomac. Willie Lincoln drinks the water from the Potomac River. It kills him. McClellan's a good trainer, but a lousy fighter, so he keeps getting defeated. All right. He gets fired, but then he comes back, and Lee drops his plans at Antietam. So, hey, that keeps Britain out of it for a while. Emancipation Proclamation, a war measure. Dr. Johnson said this the other day. Such a great line. I never thought about this. The Emancipation Proclamation turns the Civil War into a revolutionary war. Before, it's a conservative war. You're just conserving what existed, but now you're changing Southern society. All right? It's a revolutionary war. And it's eventually going to become a Declaration of Independence war at Gettysburg. All right, so you've got that interesting question, whether or not he freed the slaves, where he could, he would not, where he would, he could not. All right, out west you got Grant, siege at Vicksburg. You know, they ate shoes and rats, and the soldiers didn't hear anything. All right, he could handle the fighting. All right, Fort Henry and Donelson first, then Shiloh, a 2-day battle. You couldn't step. All right, there's the strategy. You know, it's the blockade. You chase them around. You capture the capital. You cut them in 2. McClellan Burnside loses at Fredericksburg. All right, Chancellorsville, Jackson killed by friendly fire. All right, what's the chances of that? So there's Gettysburg. 3-day. Lee screws up for the second time with picket shards, and so then you're not going to get the British help once and for all. Gettysburg Address, you know, making the war about slavery. So my argument on that multiple choice question that you're going to get is that, where's the line? Last full measure of devotion. Oh, that's so beautiful. So beautiful. You can't get enough of Abraham Lincoln. Think about it. When they were just brave, they were fighting to preserve the Union because, you know, they were fighting for their buddy or their dad. But they gave the last full measure of devotion to end slavery. First one to preserve the Union. The last one, the second one to take up for their dad, their son right next to them. But the last full measure of devotion, washed in the blood of the Lamb, is the United States of America. All right, so you just can't get enough of that. Can't get enough of Abraham Lincoln. All right, he becomes the great emancipator, not with the Emancipation Proclamation, but with the Gettysburg Address. All right, let's see. So then the war's going to end. All right, Appomattox. He's chasing them all over the place. All right, boom, baby. We got an end of the war. So there's that again. So now we just got to do Reconstruction. All right, hey, there's habeas corpus. Remember, he arrested Southern sympathizers. So you got, and you got the troubling things. He's a restrictionist originally, not an abolitionist. All right, it's the possibilities of politics. Oh my gosh. All right. My goal is a political sermon. Oh, I got fired up about something. I was talking about something else. Sometimes I talk to myself. All right, that sound you heard was me pretending to have an argument with somebody and banging getting all inspired by Lincoln and banging my fist on the table. That was interesting. All right, let me see. More Gettysburg. There he is. There's Gettysburg Address. There it is. Yeah, Vicksburg, we know that. Sherman. Okay. Second speech. Malice towards none, charity for all. If this war is God's punishment, well then the judgment of God is righteous and true altogether. There's the last picture of Lincoln. He's become the greatest American. All right, there's the man. But he had to go through, have the trial by fiery furnace. All right, so then he gets killed by Booth. Booth claims he's a tyrant. That's what always happens to tyrants, which means Johnson's in charge of Reconstruction. So Reconstruction, there's the struggles, North versus South, black versus white, Republican versus Democrat, national versus state, Congress versus the president. Is the South a conquered nation or rebellious territory? What does freedom mean? Does it mean you can be a sharecropper and tenant farmer and still be in debt? Remember, the Klan was going after not just African Americans, but sharecroppers and tenant farmers, and everybody who ever put on a hood for the Ku Klux Klan was a Democrat, at least in the first version of the Klan. All right, so as presidential Reconstruction is gentle, welcome, forgiving Reconstruction, and radical Reconstruction wants to be tough. So it's the 10% plan. Johnson wanted to go easy on the South, let them have the black codes. The freedmen had a slave-like existence. The Freedmen's Bureau tries to help them out, but it didn't give them any land. So then you give these black codes when the southern states come back, and Jackson lets them in. All right, so the radicals take over Stevens and Sumner. And they passed civil rights legislation, the Civil Rights Act that said, you get the fruit of your labor, gets rid of the black codes. They renew the Freedmen's Bureau. Tenure of Office Act says he can't fire radicals in his cabinet, so he fires Stanton, and he almost gets convicted. All right, so there they are. Radical Reconstruction Act. South divided into 5 military districts. Carpetbaggers and scalawags are coming down, and they're seen as corrupt. And we now see that the Grant administration marked by corruption in the North and the South. So it's not a pro-Southern or really racist thing to say some of these government agents in the South were kind of corrupt. And so the resentment of corruption mixed with racism. So it's this controversial thing. All right, the Republicans trying to help the former slaves mixed with, hey, they want to win elections, and if African Americans vote, they'll win. So it's all complicated and mixed. All right. Okay. So there's the 14th Amendment. Equal protection. 15th Amendment. Can't deny the right to vote. Grant takes on the Klan. African Americans got voted into office. The Enforcement Act gets rid of the Klan. Churches and colleges flourished. Redeemers gradually got reelected as Southern states fulfilled conditions. Got to ratify 14th and 14th Amendment and give African Americans the right to vote. Compromise of 1877. All right. And there it is. Let's take a look. Is there anything else? No, we didn't put Garfield and Arthur on there. All right. Boom. All right. You have been treated to one of these dang videos. All right. Maybe, if we can make it work. If I can't be stupid and remember what I'm supposed to do next. All right, I think I'm supposed to click this thing up here.